Most people think of love as a feeling, as something that suddenly appears, overwhelms the heart, changes the body, and pulls us toward another human being. But perhaps love is much more than emotion, and perhaps it is not something we simply fall into, but something that slowly leads us back to the deepest truth of who we are. The ancient Greeks gave different names to this mysterious force, and among the most powerful are Eros, Philia, and Agape. 3 forms of love that are often explained as desire, friendship, and unconditional love. Yet in a spiritual sense, they are much more than categories. They describe an inner movement, a path of consciousness, and a transformation of the human being from longing, through real relationship, toward a love that no longer belongs only to the personal ego. Love is the greatest force that moves human life, because it makes us search, hope, suffer, open, protect, sacrifice, and grow, while at the same time confronting us with our deepest fear, the fear of closeness, vulnerability, loss, and surrender. In love, the paradox of being human becomes visible, because we experience ourselves as separate individuals, enclosed in our own bodies, memories, wounds, and longings, and yet we carry a deep intuition that separation is not the whole truth. This is why love is never only romantic, because beneath attraction, affection, loyalty, pain, joy, and longing, there is often a deeper movement toward unity, toward recognition, and toward the feeling that the other somehow reveals something we had forgotten within ourselves. Eros is the first fire on this path, and although it is often reduced to physical attraction or romantic passion, it is much deeper than desire, because Eros is the force of longing itself, the restless movement that pulls us beyond isolation and makes us seek union with something greater than our own closed self. In Greek mythology, Eros was not merely a sweet figure of romance, but a creative principle, a force that sets life in motion, and in many mystical traditions, this longing was understood as the soul's hunger for the divine, hidden beneath the surface of human desire. Eros can make us feel intensely alive, because it opens the senses, awakens imagination, and gives the world a heightened glow. But it can also entangle us in projection, when we no longer see the other person as they are, but as the answer to our own inner emptiness. This is the danger and the spiritual lesson of Eros, because what we desire in another person is often not only the person themselves, but the lost wholeness we hope they will restore within us. When Eros is unconscious, it can become dependency, obsession, fantasy, and emotional hunger. But when Eros is seen clearly, it becomes a sacred messenger showing us that our deepest longing is not only for possession, but for connection, meaning, beauty, and return. Spiritually understood, Eros is therefore not the final destination of love, but the beginning of the journey, because it reveals that we are searching, even if we do not yet understand what we are truly searching for. Philia begins where the intoxication of projection becomes real encounter, because Philia is the love that recognizes the other not as an image, not as a promise, and not as an extension of our own desire, but as an independent human being with strengths, wounds, limits, dignity, and mystery. This form of love is often less dramatic than Eros, but it may be more truthful, because Philia is built through trust, presence, shared experience, loyalty, patience, humor, and the quiet knowledge that 2 people are walking a part of the path together. Aristotle saw friendship as one of the highest forms of human connection, not because it is always exciting, but because it is capable of carrying life, and because in true friendship we do not use the other merely as a source of pleasure or advantage. Philia teaches us something that Eros often avoids, because it asks for responsibility, reliability, attention, forgiveness, and the courage to remain present when the first enchantment fades and the reality of relationship begins. In this sense, Philia is deeply spiritual because it brings love back to the ground, back to the real person, back to the daily practice of seeing, listening, respecting, and not turning away when life becomes ordinary. A relationship without philia may burn brightly for a while, but it often lacks the inner structure to endure, because passion alone cannot hold what trust, respect, and friendship have never been allowed to build. Philia reminds us that love is not only the desire to merge, but also the willingness to meet. And meeting another person truly means allowing them to exist beyond our expectations, projections, fears, and romantic fantasies. Agape is the most radical form of love, because it moves beyond desire and even beyond personal friendship into a love that does not depend on reward, possession, emotional return, or the fulfillment of the self. In the Christian mystical tradition, agape is often understood as divine love itself, a love that gives without calculating, sees without reducing, and embraces life without asking whether the other has earned it. In Buddhism, we find a related dimension in compassion for all beings, a form of love that does not choose only the pleasant, familiar, or useful, but opens the heart towards suffering wherever it appears. Agape is not an emotion in the ordinary sense, because emotions rise and fall, while agape is closer to a state of consciousness, a way of seeing life in which the ego is no longer the only center of meaning. This does not mean that agape accepts everything, excuses harm, or gives up necessary boundaries, because unconditional love is not the same as self-abandonment, and compassion without discernment can easily become confusion. True agape sees more deeply, but it does not become blind. It recognizes the humanity beneath behavior, the woundedness beneath defense, and the unity beneath separation, while still remaining capable of truth, clarity, and responsibility. This is why the movement from Eros to Philia to Agape is not a simple ladder, and it is not a moral ranking in which one form of love must be rejected in order to reach the next. Eros, Philia, and Agape belong together, because human love needs the fire of longing, the steadiness of relationship, and the spaciousness of a heart that is not imprisoned by the ego. Eros searches outside for what feels missing inside. Philia discovers the other as a real counterpart, and agape begins to dissolve the illusion that love belongs only to the private self. This movement does not happen once and then remain complete, because we move through these forms again and again in relationships, friendships, family bonds, spiritual practice, grief, forgiveness, and the painful beauty of human life. Sometimes we are full of longing, sometimes we are called to patience, and sometimes life invites us into a love that asks nothing in return except that we become more open, more truthful, and less afraid. Love is therefore one of the greatest mirrors of consciousness, because it does not only show us what we want, but also where we are defended, where we are afraid, where we control, where we idealize, and where we are still unable to let another person be free. Many people hope that love will make them happy, and sometimes it does. But perhaps the deeper purpose of love is not simply to make us happy, but to make us conscious. Love reveals our fear of loss, our hunger for recognition, our wounds around abandonment, our longing for safety, and our capacity for tenderness. And in this revelation, we are invited not to escape ourselves, but to become more honest. A mature understanding of love does not destroy romance, friendship, or devotion, but it frees them from illusion because it allows passion to become conscious, friendship to become sacred, and compassion to become more than an idea. When love remains only eros, it may become restless, demanding,